Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman. I'm coming back at you with another video. Well, it's May, so what does that mean? It's the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. So once a week in May, we're going to take a look. I can't talk. So once a week in May, we're going to take a closer look at something The Empire Strikes Back related. First, I looked at news articles leading up to the release of Empire, and then last week we looked at how Kenner was ready, this time for Star Wars figures. And today, we're going to look at a Star Wars figure you may never heard of, Tusk. Did you know a Star Wars figure was named Tusk? Here he is, Tusk the Ugnaught. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, Junkman, what are you? Are you some kind of crazy fool? This is not Tusk, it's just an Ugnaught. Are you going to tell us about some story about when you were a kid, you played with him and you used to call him Tusk? No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you about how he was named Tusk from Ugnaught in the 1980 Canadian Sears Wish Book. You wacky Canadians. First you named someone Dave Foley, and second, you named someone Tusk from Ugnaught. Now in the US Sears Wish Book, it's just called an Ugnaught. And that name Tusk doesn't appear anywhere else. It's not in the comics, it's not in the novel, it's not in the screenplay. It's nowhere to be found other than up in Canada in the 1980 Sears Wish Book, Tusk from Ugnaught. But how did this name come about if it wasn't printed anywhere else? Well, Kenner named a lot of the aliens, or droids, other than the main characters. If it was background characters, a lot of times, not always, Kenner would just make up the name itself. And they often made up names based on what it looked like. Walrus Man because his mouth looked like a ball sack. Hammerhead because he had a hammer for a head. You get what I'm saying here. But what about Tusk? Why Tusk? For that we'll go back to the summer of 1980 when they were still planning these figures, still coming up with a basic name for them, and still designing them. They had to get the information to Sears pretty early because the catalogs would have to be ready by September of that year. Now let's take a closer look at the picture that appears in the Canadian Wish Book. As you can see here, 7 figures, and one of them includes Tusk from Ugnaught. But if that name Tusk never appeared in anything else, how did Canada get it? Kenner was always sent from Lucasfilm production photos, behind the scene photos, close-up photos of the aliens, where they would take these photos and make little notes on them. And they got a picture of a group of Ugnaughts. Let's take a closer look at that. As you can see, here's 4 Ugnaughts. Not really sure who the human guy in the back is. Kenner made a lot of notes on the photo, such as that this one character is a character that pulls the lever. I don't really know what that means either. Maybe that means he operated the carbon freezing chamber. Another one shows that he has a briefcase in his left hand. But the interesting thing here is the Ugnaught in the middle, what seems to be the one that the figure is based on. Not really sure what the B in the circle means, but look right above it and you'll see the word Tusk. It seemed very early on, while trying to come up with a name for the figure, Kenner thought of calling this Tusk. Why Tusk? Well, probably because of the tusk coming from his mouth, those sharp teeth. Another interesting note about this photo, it says that these are Ugnaughts. I guess the plural for Ugnaught is Ugnaughts. So it seems for a brief period of time, Kenner was thinking of calling this figure Tusk, but then went just with a generic name of naming it the name of the species and not giving him an official name. The information of the name was gathered, sent up to Canada, so those wacky Canadians could get to work on their Sears Wish Book. Here in the US, Kenner could easily tell Kenner, hey, we're not going to name him Tusk. We're just going to name him Ugnaught. So Sears in the US were able to change the name before they shipped it out. Or it just seems like there was not enough time to change the name in the Canadian Wish Book. Or no one really cared. It just wasn't worth Kenner's time to call up to Canada to tell them the name is changed. I mean, after all, they would have to hear a boot and hear about how good Canadian bacon is. So you can kind of understand why they didn't want to call anyone up in Canada. Anyway, that's a look at Tusk from Ugnaught. I wasn't sure if you guys knew about this. If you grew up in Canada, maybe that's what you always called him because you saw it in the Wish Book. But that's the only time this figure was called Tusk. Let me know in the comments below. Did you call him Tusk? Have you ever heard this story? If you hadn't heard it, now that you have, are you going to run around telling all your friends how he was going to be called Tusk? Well, as always, please thumb up my video so I know you like my content and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video, we'll talk again.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.